Today on African American Voices of Charles County, presented by the Charles County NAACP, I spend some time with a man I affectionately call the mayor of Charles County, Mr. William Braxton. Mr. Braxton and I will chat about his personal history in the county, his extensive and ceiling-breaking career with the Southern Maryland Electric Company, better known as SMECO, and finally, his history with the Charles County NAACP and his tenure as a past president of the branch. All of that and more right now on African American Voices of Charles County. So, let's get started.
Right.
I will, for the sake of the show today, because of how we usually work together, I'm gonna call you Mr. Braxton, or I'm normally just call you Braxton.
That'll be fine, Joe.
I appreciate your willingness to participate with us today. You know,
Okay.
we had you tapped for a little bit, but we kind of had to pull you a little more to get you in.
I got you.
It's usually not easy talking about yourself. Most people aren't usually that comfortable, but you know, you've done a lot in this town, as we outsiders would say.
Yes, yes.
And so for that, we want to spend a little time just focusing on you, talking about you and some of the stuff you've done. So we're gonna start at the very, very beginning.
Oh boy.
Yeah. It may not be that far back. I know you're just creeping out of your 20s, but we're gonna start a little further back.
Okay.
All right. So let's start at the very beginning. Born and raised. Were you born and raised here in Charles County?
No, I was born and raised in St. Mary's County,
Okay.
Charlotte, Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So when did you how long did you stay in Charlotte Hall?
Yeah. I stayed there for 17 years. When I graduated from high school, I stayed there I graduated at the age of 17. I stayed there maybe a month or two, then I moved up to PG County.
Okay. That's not bad. Not bad at all. So where did you go to school? What was life like in St. Mary's County in Charlotte Hall at that time?
It was awesome. I mean, we grew up on 1 acre of land, big old farmhouse, no electricity. I think it was 63, 62 before we got electricity. We used to listen to a big old radio, and that's how we kept up with what's going on in the world. And I went to school at White Marsh. I think I was about maybe 2 years or 3 years from going to school in a one-room schoolhouse.
Wow.
They
okay.
had, brand new school, freshly built, White Marsh Elementary.
White Marsh Elementary.
Yeah.
Okay. What was it like? It wasn't segregated or anything at that time?
No, it was not.
Okay.
It was all black school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it was segregated. That was all black school?
All black school.
White Marsh. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So then where did you matriculate after that?
After that, I went to Banneker. Banneker High was a high school for African Americans before moving to Chaptacon, which was the first school that was integrated.
Oh, okay. So I've actually never heard of Banneker.
You never heard of Banneker?
I've never, until this very moment, sir.
Wow.
I mean, the only Banneker I know of is the one in D.C.
Yeah.
So tell me more about Banneker in St. Mary's.
In St. Mary's County.
Okay.
Yeah. It is now a elementary school, and I'm pretty sure it's still called Banneker.
Okay.
But it's located in Oakville, Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oakville, Maryland.
Yep.
It's not bad. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, you might have to check that out.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So you said you grew up on a farm.
But it was
not
like
a
a farmhouse now, yeah. Well, I mean, we raised our own eating material. We raised hogs, chickens, rabbits.
That's some
That's
some good eating.
Yeah, it was. Yes, it was.
Nice. Now, do you have any siblings? It was just
no,
you?
5 boys and 5 girls.
That's 12 people, sir,
Yeah.
including your parents.
Well, it was. We had one more sibling, a cousin that my mother raised with us.
So then that's 13.
Yeah. Yes.
And how big of a home are we talking about here?
It was a pretty good old house until we moved into the first house with electricity was a Jim Walter home, and it's still standing today.
Still standing today.
Yeah, my only home place.
Wow. Now, you mentioned that a few minutes ago that up until this point, you didn't have electricity. Now, what age are we talking about?
I'm talking about probably 9 to 10.
So the first 9 years of your life,
Yeah,
no electricity.
none whatsoever.
And what is that like? I mean, so let me ask you, in the pecking order or the ranking of the siblings, where do you fall including the cousin? Where do you fall in
Number
that?
5.
Number 5.
Yeah,
From the top or from the bottom?
from the bottom.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So what is that like with a good 10 people and no electricity?
It was pretty tight. I mean, you know, we was the coat that we wore to school. We put on our beds to help keep us warm at night. That was part of our blankets.
Yeah.
Because it was an old wood frame house, and you know, when the wind blew outside, the wind blew inside.
The wind blew inside, in and out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's all right. So you said you matriculated through Banneker and then you went over to Chopticon.
Yes.
Which I've heard of, obviously through some coaching and stuff. I always have kids who play at high school. So there was I never actually knew where it was. I knew it was far away though.
Yeah, and Morganza.
Okay. So you matriculate through Chopticon. You graduate. What do you do? You stay here? You said something about.
I stayed home for a couple of months, and I went up to Andrews Air Force Base to work at a gas station.
Okay.
And I'd never done that kind of work before, so I was just attended, and each 3 hours you were taking a certain amount of money, and you would turn it in. And I didn't realize the guys were stealing from me, so my boss called me in one day and said, "Man, you got to do a better job. They're robbing you blind."
Okay, so hold on. Again, I've got to grasp this concept. You are working as a gas attendant.
Yes.
At the gas station.
Yep.
By Andrew.
Right.
Every 3 hours, you're responsible for taking the money that you get from pumping the gas.
All the money that pumped during my tenure comes to me.
Okay. And then you go inside and give it to the attendant inside.
Yes.
And then that person is supposed to log it, do something.
Yes.
He pinches off the top.
No, he wasn't pinching off the top. The guys that was working with me was pinching off the top. Instead of bringing me the money, they was going to bathrooms or going around to their cars. And I was naive. I've never.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So how long did you stay there at the gas station?
Probably about a month. He suggested that wasn't for me.
That probably wasn't the best line of work.
Yeah, it wasn't.
So what'd you do after that? Where'd you go from there?
I moved in with my brother up in District Heights.
Okay.
And I went to work for a landscape company.
Okay.
Landscaping.
Mm-hmm. What'd you do with them?
We finished graded yards. All of the yards for new homes were hand raked, hand graded, and we seeded, cut trees, whatever we had to do to get them in the house. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Did that lead to your career with SMECO, or was that like the beginning?
Led to my career with SMECO because I learned how to handle chainsaws, cut trees, and that type of thing.
Working with the landscaping
Yes.
company. Wonderful. Okay. So how long did you stay in District Heights? Did you come back down this way then, or you stayed there for quite some time?
I stayed there 2 years.
Okay.
When I left District Heights, that's when I went to SMECO, and then I met my wife, and we moved over to Oxon Hill. We lived there for about maybe 4 or 5 years.
Well, that tends to drive some change, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I understand. Okay, that's not bad. So you leave there, you go to work for SMECO, but SMECO at this time is functioning in
White Plains.
White Plains.
Yes.
So now you're driving from Oxon Hill
To White Plains.
to White Plains every day, back and forth, which at that time is quite a drive.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Because okay, all right. Well, you know what? Let's pause right here for a second.
Okay.
We will we'll take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're gonna start talking about that time with SMECO and how that was, and what turned out to be some pretty incredible things you did over there.
Absolutely.
All right. So we'll be right back in a second. Stay tuned.
We're the NAACP. We don't follow movements, we define movements.
Welcome back. In our first segment, we learned a little bit about the humble beginnings of Mr. Braxton, the 13 people and no electricity for the first few years, and learning about the first job that probably wasn't the best line of work
Right.
for a young man from that side of town. So where we left off, you had just you talked about your starting with SMECO.
Yes.
Let's chat about that. So, because SMECO is a huge part of your life.
Yes.
You started. You said you were traveling back and forth between Oxon Hill and White Plains. What led to the decision to apply for SMECO in the first place?
Well, I think it was during the tenure where President Ford had just tried to make changes where you get more African Americans working for these large companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my sister's boyfriend worked for the electric company. He was telling me how good of a job it was. Mm-hmm. And I also knew a gentleman down the road named Mr. Butler, and he was, prominent person in the neighborhood. And he suggested I apply, so I did. Mm-hmm. And I was accepted.
Okay. So did you have to go through any training? What was your first job there with SMECO?
I started as an apprentice laborer, which was on what we call the brush truck.
Okay.
Which was actually clearing right-of-ways for new lines.
Okay.
And trimming existing lines to keep them from kicking the lines off and things like that.
So because at that time, what year are we talking about? Let's put this.
We're talking about 73, 74.
73, 74. So down here in what they used to call the country,
yes,
most of this stuff was just all woods.
Yeah.
So in order to lay or to get these poles up in these electricity lines, your job was to do what? Come in and cut the trees?
Come in and cut the trees, clear the underbrush.
Okay.
So the guys can put the lines up without having trees and stuff in the way.
Nice. So then explain to me what the climate of SMECO was like when you got there. What you said your sister's boyfriend, I assume,
yes.
was African American also.
Yeah.
But it was around the time where we were, in essence, trying to integrate these large companies.
Yes.
What did it feel like a young man coming to SMECO at that time?
Well, it was new to me because all the heavy work I had done around a lot of white folks was I did a little bricklaying before I went up to Andrews and stuff like that. But it was new because the climate was different. Mm-hmm. There was little things that I wasn't used to, like somebody touching you in places where they're not supposed to. And I thought, they did what they call goosing you.
Okay.
And man, I went home the first day, couple of days, and I told the boys I was gonna have to brush up a little bit because it touched me like that again, something's gonna happen because I didn't know.
Right. They were just playing around.
Yeah.
But it was right.
Yeah. Right. So that took a little getting used to. I went on the brush truck. And I became very good at what I was doing. Mm-hmm. Became a tree trimmer, and I always wanted to be a lineman. But my boss was from Kansas.
Okay.
And it was hard for him to keep people on his crew. So whenever we got around the line crews, he just stopped working Carswell somewhere else because he didn't want me to see what they were doing and didn't want me to get in that line of work.
So he was purposefully leaving you to the side,
yes,
so that way you wouldn't be able to advance.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you get around that?
Well, in order to, we went by seniority back in the day.
Right. Okay.
So in order for me to advance, I ended up going to Calvert County for a lineman job.
Okay.
And that's when I got to Calvert, that's when I really knew what racism was.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, Calvert was an interesting place.
Yeah, oh my God. There was only one other African American working there. He was an older gentleman. Mm-hmm. So when I walked in the morning, I spoke to everybody. No, not a soul spoke. Mm-hmm. Only that gentleman. He said, "Good morning, boss man." So when I met my general foreman, he took me around and introduced me to people. Nobody spoke. But when we went out back to go on the truck I was going on, when I walked past him, my general foreman, he tripped at me.
Wow.
And then when he told me I was going, somebody spoke up and said, "Where is he going to ride? On the back?" I said, "Oh my God, what have I got myself into?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was Calvert.
Yeah, it was Calvert County.
Now we're talking mid-70s at this point.
That was Probably, yeah, early 80s.
Early 80s.
When I went to Calvert, yeah.
When you went to Calvert, okay.
Because I worked over White Plains a minute or two before
So
got the transfer.
So early 80s, you are in the early 80s of SMECO, there's still only 2 African Americans in Calvert County working in that division.
Yeah.
We'll call it a division.
Yeah. Well, excuse me, it was 3 because they had 1 African American lineman.
Okay, 3.
At that point, yeah.
Are you still making that trip back and forth from Oxon Hill, or have you moved down here
Now I'm
yet?
making that trip from Braxton Hill down to Calvert County now.
Whew,
Yeah.
that's a hump, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So so what's that like? Are you matriculating through? You're still dealing with these gentlemen who don't want you there.
Well, it was a twofold situation. They didn't want me there because of my race, nor did they want me there because I was taking other people's jobs.
Mhm.
They felt that I took a job from somebody that they wanted to have.
Ah, right.
So they didn't want to teach you anything.
Mhm.
You had to learn everything on your own. And they put me with this older gentleman, and he took me under his wing.
Really?
Yeah, yep. Him and I got along like that.
Yeah.
And they even tried to put me in situations where it made it look like I was the bad guy.
Mhm.
And it had not been for that gentleman speaking up for me, I probably would not be here today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're dealing with this all the time.
Yes.
Clearly.
Yes.
Every day, back and forth. What are you're dealing with some of the individuals when you said even the matter of riding on the truck.
Yeah.
Do you work with the same crew?
Yeah,
Or is it
basically the same crew, but if someone's off, then you get transferred to another truck.
okay?
And as you go up in the rank, you move from one truck to another.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how is it moving up, matriculating through that? Are you what are the roadblocks that you are coming in contact with?
People tampering with your stuff,
Mhm.
your protective equipment,
Mhm.
your rubber gloves, which are your lifeline.
Wait, hold on. Wait a second. So now you're working on actual electricity on the
Yes,
lines.
yes.
And you're saying that people are tampering with your gloves that
Yeah.
are supposed to protect you
Yes.
when grabbing these electrical lines.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was in the double bucket, and I went to
Double bucket. You got it.
that's a bucket. It's a bucket truck.
Okay, so that's the one that has the thing on the top and it's kind of looks like that.
Yeah.
Okay, it raises you up. Right.
Right, and it's a 2-man bucket,
Okay.
one on each side, and I went to put a line guard on.
Okay.
And when I put the line guard on, I just you hold the water with one hand and slide your line. I got a tingle, and you're not supposed to get that.
Right.
So as I was pulling my protective gloves off, the guy on the ground said, "You're supposed to check your gloves every day before you go up." So he had already knew I had a hole in them. So somebody had cut holes in my gloves.
Wow.
Yeah.
So based on your response, he knew that the
Yeah.
tampering had worked.
Yeah.
And in letting you know that he knew,
Yes.
he sent the little word up to you. There,
Absolutely.
what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So I mean, that's what it was.
That's
right?
what it was. Yeah.
And then you settled in
Yeah.
and pushed forward.
Yeah. Kept on going. Just like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
After people get used to you, it started getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I wrote a letter to the director of the company, explaining to him how bad the racism was in Calvert. When the news got back that a letter was sent, I had one white friend. His name was SMECO, very good friend of mine. He was the president of the union. He took me under his wing, and he taught me everything that he could. He taught me well. The white folks said, no, it couldn't have been written. That letter couldn't have been written by a black person. It had to be written by SMECO. And he was targeted at the local bars they hung out as the end lover.
Wow.
Yes, and he was attacked at a couple places.
Physically.
Physically, yes.
Because they believed the letter you wrote
Came
was
from
written
him.
by him.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
And he still held you down. He still stuck by his
Yeah,
side.
yeah. Oh, he went back. He went and got his boys.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
my
he went
type of
back.
guy, man. I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this guy.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Wow. So whatever came of that letter, outside of the response from the other linemen and individuals in the company, what did leadership do about that letter?
It kind of opened their eyes up to that something very wrong was going on across the waterways, and it took a long time. It took a lot of pressure from myself, people like myself, Pearl Yates, and all the African Americans that could. after I went over, others started coming over.
Right.
And as they come over, things kind of eased up.
So once the floodgates open, more African Americans are working there, and they are voicing their concerns.
Yes.
In other ways, it's rising up, and so it's starting to change.
It started to change.
Tell me about your decision to either run for union president and where you were in your career at that time.
At that time, I was a journeyman lineman.
Okay.
That's the highest step you can go before going to a chief or a foreman.
Okay.
And as I say, my president, at that time I was vice president of the union.
Okay.
Mr. Slagle, my president, passed away. And as vice president, it was my duty to step up. But boy, did I meet some opposition.
Yeah.
They've never had an African American president before, so you can't do that. You don't want to do that. Let so and so take it. You be the vice. I said, no, man, that's my job.
Right.
As vice president, it's my job to move up. And I took the position, so they took this guy, made him the vice president so he can watch me. Everywhere I went, he had to go. He was there. He was there. And about 3-4 years down the road, I think we won the biggest arbitration case ever been won against SMECO. And this guy came to me. He said, I got to apologize to you. He said, we was brought up and taught that black people weren't smart, that they were dumb. He said, I owe you an apology.
Wow.
Yep.
That's a big deal.
Yep.
What was the arbitration for? Did it put money in his pocket? Because that usually changes.
It wasn't him. He was my vice president.
Okay.
It was for a termination. The young lady had got fired. And she wasn't supposed to be fired. She was supposed to be able to go back to the job that she had prior to the job she went to.
Okay.
So they neglected that rule and just went on to terminate her. And we arbitrated and we won.
And you won. And due to that, it started to change. How long did you stay in your role as the president of the union?
About 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So you had some history with I'll say fighting the system, but letting the system know where you stood.
Yes.
And in an attempt to change it for the betterment of everybody associated.
Absolutely.
Wow. All right. So I think that's a good place to stop. We're gonna pause here, and then we'll be right back, and we'll talk about how that transitioned over to the NAACP. All right.
Gotcha.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Get it.
Get it.
Get it.
Give your town a reason to celebrate, because every Goodwill item you bring home brings job training and more to your community. Goodwill, bring good home.
Welcome back. In our last portion, we spoke with Mr. Braxton about his time with SMECO, some of the things he endured to get to the end. Obviously, the situation of having the president of the union pass away, and then you step up and not only taking the union by the reins, but then driving it for another 10 years.
Yes.
Which is incredible, given what unions mean to that line of work. So in that, clearly, you have a history of not going along to get along.
Right.
So let's talk about your NAACP time, because at some point you decided to shift to this civil rights organization. Tell me, what was your earliest memory of encountering the NAACP?
Oh, when we were kids, one of my neighbors, Miss Carrie Glasgow, she was always involved in youth. She had a youth teen club back in the days.
Okay.
But anything that the NAACP did in St. Mary's or Charles, she'd have a bus for us to go to be part of. So we were always part of the NAACP. But what got me interested more so than after I moved to Waldorf and after I got to Charles County, as a union president, it became like a revolving door. The same people that you save jobs for, they have a tendency of coming back and popping up again. I said, let me try a little something else.
Yeah.
So when I got down, I brought a I brought a truck from Golden Evans, and he was the president of the union at the
Golden
time.
Evans.
Golden Evans. Yeah, and he said, Braxton, come on over here with us, boy, give us a hand. And I did that, and got working with them on a couple of cases. I think we had one at Safeway in Waldorf. A young lady was terminated, and we worked that case along with a lady named Mary Liza Queen.
Okay.
And we got the young lady reinstated. And when I moved to Charles County, I think the minority population was around 19%. And the mall wasn't built, so Sears and all the malls got built. And we had another pretty good sized case over there where they had a gentleman move up to Sears from Tennessee.
Okay.
And he decided that the department did not. They had about 7 African Americans working in leadership positions, and he said that didn't meet the makeup of the neighborhood. So he started demoting and moving them back to other places.
Oh wait, he went the opposite.
Yeah,
direction.
he went the opposite directions.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the whole group came to the NAACP.
Yeah.
And we went there, and the gentleman, he wasn't very pleasant to talk to, so it ended up going to the state, and at the state, it escalated to the national. So when it got to the national, one of the board members on the national board at that time was also on the board for Sears. And she took a good look at it, and the gentleman ended up back in Tennessee where he came from. And all of the people's jobs were reinstated.
Reinstated.
Yes.
Wow. So clearly, Golden Evans, who, you know, you're in this line of work in this town. There's some names that pop up
Yes.
that you stand on the shoulders of, and that individual is one of those names.
Yes.
And it's interesting when I have these conversations, and we have these interviews that these individuals that I've heard so much about, the interactions with you all, and I can see how that has, you know, led
Yeah.
through your life. So are you still the president of the union at the same time you joined?
Yes, I
Or-
was.
okay.
For a while, and then I decided that was one of the reasons why I gave it up, so I could go become more involved in the NAACP.
Wow.
Because the folks, they were getting older, and there was no young people there other than myself, like Wanda Swanese, and that was actually working cases. And Joe Counters, me and Joe was like that. We worked many cases together, and after meeting people like Salome Howard, she became my mentor. Swanese Hawkins, and then it was it.
From there.
Yeah.
You were all in.
Yes.
The union's over there.
Yeah.
Let me get to some bigger work over here.
Yeah.
So at what point did you decide, you know what, I think I'm gonna take a shot at running for president of the branch? What led to that decision?
After Swanese decided she wasn't going to run, I decided I would run, and
Okay.
ended up running and winning.
And then what was that like? Because clearly it's a different thing. Being the president of a union over here, while they have some of the same characteristics, the job, and I mean, a lot of it is the same, but the focus on what you're fighting for
Yes,
is different.
It was totally different, and it was a big learning curve. Whereas the union, you know, you go to school, everything formatted. This was a learning process.
Yeah. Well, you know, as a vice president of the branch, I'd like to believe that a president is only as strong as their VPs.
Yes.
So who was on your team? What did you guys attempt to accomplish?
Well, the biggest thing was we was going through a period of racism, a period of vandalism. There was no leadership in county government at all, no minority leadership at all. I think out of something like 63 jobs, all but 14 was manned by white men.
Wow.
No.
Wait. Hold on.
Yes.
You sped past that. That just clicked with me.
Okay.
You said of the 63 positions here in the county that were county positions,
Yes.
all but 14 were
Where department heads or whatever were headed by white males.
white males.
Yes.
Okay. So those other 14 were
Either women or
Right,
or-
okay.
Yeah. And
Wow.
And then
But still very few African Americans.
very
Were
few.
there ever? Were there?
Very few.
Okay.
And that's when I think it was like 2005, 2007. Then this racial graffiti and all this stuff started, and then we really had to go to work because we had county commissioners that at that point would use the term them folks, those folks. When African Americans started moving in from PG County, you would get in the meetings, and we don't want them people down here.
Yeah.
Words like that.
Well,
So
like
the call to action came, and that's when I think the unity in the community really started when the graffiti was widespread throughout the county.
So we're saying graffiti, but let's get to it. So in 2005, 2007, I think one of the things that was most notable that went past the county line was in Bryan's Road,
Yes.
right, where they were building those new townhomes,
Correct.
and swastikas and all that stuff started to appear. Talk to me about how that was, because you were the president at the time.
Yeah.
So now it's an all hands on deck.
It was all hands on deck, and things were happening so rapidly that we opened up a partnership between the sheriff department, which was Fred Davis at the time, where that anything went down, I would immediately get a call, regardless of where I was. I could be on a trip somewhere, I got a phone call letting them know that there was another incident.
And how often was your phone ringing?
Oh gosh, it was off the chain.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the problem was that the initial call was vandalism on everything. They didn't want to didn't want to call it a hate crime.
Wow. So clearly, it's what it is.
It is what it is.
And the sheriff themselves don't want to classify it the way they should.
Right.
And they want to keep calling it vandalism.
Yes.
And so when you say it's popping up everywhere, remember, I was here in the area. I wasn't in Charles County. I was on the PG side, and we heard about it because it made the news.
Yeah.
Plus, I was in the Air Force, and I know a lot of individuals who were moving down here. But where else was it happening?
Everywhere.
Because all we know is Bryan's Road.
Everywhere. Nanjamore, down at Friendship Landing, the baseball park. Nobody goes down there, but when they go to play ball, there's graffiti all over the highway.
Yeah.
All over everything. Malcolm. I mean,
Malcolm Elementary.
yeah.
Okay.
Anywhere. I mean, it's all over the county. It went.
It was just widespread.
And they were started going to secluded places where nobody would be. And I think it happened to go on a farm, and somebody happened to see this vehicle one night go through a gated property, and that's what led to the first arrest of the perpetrators.
Wow.
Just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Right time. And that's usually how it goes.
Yes.
So what was your role in, once you started this partnership and working closely with the sheriff and the county commissioners, what was that like?
It was something that they didn't want.
Yeah.
That actually ended up having to get Jenkins Odoms was the state president at the time.
Okay.
So we had to bring him down to have a conversation. And we had to convince the commissioners at that time that silence is not the answer.
Right.
See something, say something, and nobody would say anything.
I won't say anything.
And we finally got the commissioners and everybody to see that in order for this to stop, they had to stand out. So we had a big press conference right there on the courthouse steps.
Yeah. Wow.
Media and everything.
So obviously that was one of your accomplishments in what else? Give me another accomplishment of your tenure that you can hang your hat on and say, you know what, that was me, man. I took care of that.
Yeah, well, there was a couple incidents that was going on in the sheriff department. The guy was shot almost 11 times over in Pisgah on a drug bus, and we were brought into the office and shown the video. Everything was done right in the beginning. When they first pulled him over, they got the gentleman out of the vehicle, handcuffed him, had him stand back while they searched the vehicle, and let him go, let him get back in the car. Then the officer go back for a second time, and he decides he's gonna go in the back seat for some reason. Well, instead of bringing him back out and do what he was supposed to do like he did the first time, he goes in the back seat, and the guy driving the car starts to drive off, and he jumps through the window and try to stop him, and they get wrestling. Whatever, the car finally stopped, and the guy ended up getting shot and killed got shot about 11 times.
11 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know, the way we viewed it, while he was wrestling, the other officer from the other side reached in and probably shot him twice over the shoulder. So this guy backed up and shot him another 8 or 9 times.
Oh, wow.
And the sheriff at that time was Rex Coffey. And he made the statement that it shouldn't have happened this way. We're going to use this for a training video. Well, that didn't go over too well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So I think what the biggest accomplishment was there was for them to understand, because we brought the FBI in. The FBI,
Right. So you
FBI
teamed up with outside agencies,
yes,
right?
Yes. And the Cochran firm as well.
Wow.
They came
okay.
in. Yeah.
Wow. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. And it made them change a little bit, because after they shot and killed the guy, all you could hear was, he's a dirtbag. He was the scum of the earth, and the man's dead. He's got a
dead.
family.
Yeah.
And we were trying to tell him, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, so obviously, you decide it's time to, because there's a lot that happened during your tenure.
Quite a bit.
At some point, you're
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'm gonna sit the rest of this out and take away from the presidency. Probably come back as a member, which you did for quite some time. When I joined, you were a member, and then came back with Diotha as the
Yes.
first vice. Obviously, what you've done and for the county, both on the union side, both on the NAACP side, to make it better for the citizens of the county and the community is always appreciated, and always, we want to make sure that you get your roses while you can smell them, right?
I got you, yeah.
But I want to finally at the end, talking with a friend of mine, he gave me a great idea, because one of the things while we try to do on this show is to talk about you and who you are. We tend to talk about a lot of the things that affect the community, but we also need people to understand that you're human too,
Oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
So I know you have a couple of hobbies, and one of them I'm waiting for you to invite me on, so that I can get to, because as any viewers here, you'll know, if you've ever cast a line into the water,
Yes.
anywhere down here, there's a boat and a guy on that boat that you should definitely see.
You got it.
So you have an enormous love of fishing.
I do.
How you're always on your boat?
One or the other.
One or the other.
Yep, I got a fishing boat and I got a crabbing boat. So,
Crabbing boat.
Yeah.
Because I'll ask you, and you always tell me that you dropped it in and you're going
Yeah.
back to check on the traps. What led to that love of being on the water?
this is where I came up. Working for SMECO, everybody fished.
Yeah,
When you got off from work, we used to get in practically a little tin can,
yeah.
a little John boat, which I would never get in one now. But,
Right,
yeah,
right. But you also have another hobby,
traveling to the racetrack.
that racetrack.
Yeah, which we'll be hitting for Florida in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
The Gator Nationals.
Nice. Now, do you tinker around with the cars, or you just
No, I
gotta
just go.
gotta be at the track?
Yeah, I just go for the amusement.
For the amusement. Well, that's all right. Well, as we bring this to a close, I definitely want to thank you, Braxton, for for your willingness to participate, right, and also for your contributions to the county, which clearly are vast, and they're greatly appreciated. Between the NAACP, your work with SMECO, the union presidency, and things like that, you've left some space behind you for people to come behind you and have it better than when you got there. And for that, we greatly appreciate it.
I think we started the wheels of change in the county. They got them going, and we just got to keep them going.
Absolutely.
Because the history has a way of repeating itself.
It does, which is why we need you to tell that story
Yes.
so people know that history was once there.
All right.
All right. So thank you to Justin, Amber, and Mike for all of their hard work behind the scenes. This show would not exist without their support. Finally, and most importantly, a special thank you goes out to you, the viewer, for watching. Stay in touch with the Charles County NAACP on all social media platforms for meetings and upcoming events. I am your host, Joe Sampson Jr., and I will see you next time on African American Voices of Charles County. Thank you.